So first of all, I actually want to thank Pardes because these are really painful times for artists, and not just artists, like musicians, dancers, everybody. Nobody really has the state of mind to visit museums and everything's been canceled. And I deeply believe in the power of art to heal, to protest, to educate. I really think that what we're going through, you're going to see this incredible blossoming of art afterwards in response to what's going on. But to have this opportunity to use my art and make it relevant and talk about what's going on, it's a privilege.
Since the war broke out, Andi, one of the things I found that has been comforting and has taken away some of the constriction, like you walk around with this pit in your stomach, with this sense of difficulty breathing, and I find that eases the most when I'm teaching, and when I'm teaching Torah. It has surprised me, that extra Zoom classes I'm giving or walking into our classroom or beginning to immerse in a text, in a Jewish text, whether it be a piece of Torah, whether it be a piece of Talmud, has really brought up different energy from within. It may sound cliche, but it's really not. Like, I really find comfort and a sense of purpose when I teach Torah, and that there's a meaningfulness to it. And I'll say that it's not the same Torah. We've talked a lot about how we're not the same as we were the minute before the war. Stories that I've taught countless times are no longer the same story. And just to give an example, the enmity between Jacob and Esav. Normally I teach that as a fractured sibling relationship, and that neither of them behave admirably, and both of them need to work towards reconciliation, and I'm actually quite critical of Jacob. And now all I have is the enmity, right? That there's this forever enmity between two brothers who came from the same source, right? Same birth source, and it's never going to get better. And that to me was a little surprising, that when I went back into that story, it was no longer the same story. And it's really everything I'm teaching recently. I taught the story of Rabbi Akiva, who goes to a town, and he is not welcomed by anybody, right? No haknasat orchim there. He sleeps in a field, and he has a candle, a rooster, and a donkey. And the candle gets extinguished, and the rooster gets devoured by a cat, and the donkey gets devoured by a lion. And the next day he discovers the city's been taken into captivity, and he says everything the Lord does for good. But suddenly a city getting taken into captivity is not an abstract piece of a story. It's palpable. I see it, I feel it, I smell it, I hear the cries of the captives, of the children. And so Torah has both been transformative in giving me purpose and giving me meaning at this time, and also my Torah is not the same. So if you'll remember, Andi, I first came to meet with you before the war. It was before Sukkot. We set up a meeting. I came to your studio. We talked about the Tehillim vest, and we talked about the wedding gown. And that was the beginning. We were going to flesh out some sources and some discussion. And then the war broke out, and I came back. I brought my daughter the second time, and she walked around the studio, and I walked around afterwards looking at things. The etchings with the umbilical cords caught my eye. And that is not something I would have considered before the war. It was too harsh, almost a little grotesque in its redness, in the sense of, oh, I don't know if I want to go there. And once the war started, it was like, oh, we're going there. Like, we have to go there. We have to go into that tunnel. We have to think about that connection. Nothing else quite expresses what we're feeling right now. And then I started thinking about mother-child relationships in Tanakh. And the other thing was the Mishaberach for the Chayalim, right? Which also I don't think we would have used before the war. We were really focused on feminism and women and women's voices. And suddenly we pivoted, and things didn't look the same when I walked into the studio. What was your experience?
First of all, I was incredibly nervous because a scholar I'm not. My work is pediatric, kind of, like I just take things at face value. For me, it was privilege, really, to be talking about my work, but with a scholar who kept bringing in all these sources that I would, didn't have the ability to articulate. But I also think that we connected so much on, and I keep using this word right now during the war, the sisterhood level, which is as a mother, as a daughter, as a mother-in-law, like all these places. And when you and I started to talk about sources, we were just riffing off of each other.
Right.
And what about this? And what about this? Frankly, I haven't had this sort of encounter in a long time. It was very rewarding. I'm going to miss this.
I felt like the war focused us it was almost like beforehand there were so many possibilities and so many texts, and how are we going to decide exactly what to do? And then I walked in that day and it's like, oh, we're doing this, 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 and this, and it's all going to come together. And it was very sharply focused.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I just think that this way of weaving text, and art, for me, it's much more powerful.
Yeah, I always loved the idea of the text going outside of the page of the text.
Yeah.
That really it can spill over and become relevant in many aspects of life. And for that reason also, I've been a fan of your work for a long time. And so I jumped at this opportunity, right? I want to meet with Andi. And to me, this really speaks also to my own kind of mission statement, which is the Torah is relevant in multiple media, in every aspect of life, and art is such an organic extension of text.
Right. I completely agree with everything you just said.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.